And good morning. This is Dennis Sheehan. I'm one of the personal trainers at the John H Chafee Fitness Center here in Naval Station, Newport. This is another segment in our Get It Done in 2021. We have transitioned from the whole body stuff that Christina had us doing, lower body, upper body. And we've transitioned from that to much shorter little training tips segments. And so I wanted to return to the topic of mobility because it's incredibly important for your correct functioning, right? So we did some mobility stuff when we first started with the Get It Done in 2021, and I wanted to return to it because, as I said, I think it's really important, and it's easy to forget about it. So your body is a series of stable and mobile joints, right? So your foot should be stable, your ankles should be mobile, your knees should be stable, your hips should be mobile, your lumbar spine stable, your thoracic spine mobile, your scapular thoracic should be stable, shoulder mobile, right? Now, those two things interact with each other, right? So scapular thoracic stability, shoulder blade stability, allows more shoulder mobility, okay? And you can't have one without the other, but we're gonna start with mobility, right? So one of the primary sources of musculoskeletal injuries is lack of mobility. So if you lack mobility in your ankle, you will often have trouble upstream in your knee or possibly downstream in your foot. If you lack hip mobility, you might have trouble upstream in your lumbar spine or downstream in your knee. All right, so if you have pain somewhere, don't automatically think the problem is here. I got knee pain, the problem must be in my knee. No, it's actually more likely to be in, for instance, in your ankle, and your knee is compensating for the lack of mobility in your ankle. All right, so we're going to start with this whole idea of mobility and revisit it. We did a bunch of it right at the start of Getting It Done in 2021, but I want to revisit it because it really is important. And I want to start way down here at your ankles, right? Because ankle mobility is incredibly important for all sorts of things that we do. Obviously, it's important for walking, for running. If you're interested in squatting, you need good ankle mobility. Now, a lot of you say, well, yeah, I can squat. Yeah, you can, but if you lack ankle mobility, what's happening, for instance, is your knees are going in the wrong direction, for instance, okay? Your feet are coming off the floor when you squat. Your lumbar spine is not in the correct position. So your body will find a way to do things, but those compensations will end up causing problems down the road, all right? So you really want to work on these mobility issues now in order to prevent future problems. So we're going to start with ankle mobility. And I just want to show you a simple way to assess your ankle mobility. You're going to go here to the wall. You're going to get into half kneeling, right? So you're at roughly 90 degrees here, 90 degrees here. Now, you want your big toe to start about 4 inches away from the wall. Okay, so I'm about 4 inches. And the nice thing about this little assessment, if you will, is that you can keep track of things, right? You can record, okay, I'm 4 inches away from the wall. And what you're going to now try to do is simply translate this knee forward and see if you can touch the wall without your heel coming off the ground, right? Now, don't cheat. The idea is not, oh yeah, I can do this, see my heel come off the ground. Oh yeah, see, this is pretty easy. Well, yeah, now you've just misled yourself. Now you think, yeah, I've got good ankle mobility. No, you don't, right? So keep that heel on the ground, right? The whole point of this is to figure out where you're at, right? It's not to say, well, I'm really great, even though you're not, okay? Figure out where you are. Be honest. You know, I'm right at the end. That 4 inches, if it were, 4 1/4, my heel would come off the ground, all right? So I'm right at 4 inches on this right side, right? And if it's not 4, just go closer. See where you're at. Where can you, touch the wall with this knee without getting that heel off the ground, all right? Record that. See, okay, I was 3 1/2, I was 3 3/4, I was 4 inches, right? Now, roughly speaking, 4 inches is good. It's about a fist. So if you don't have a measuring tape, stick your fist and your thumb out like this, okay? And, there you go. If I put my thumb on the wall and go all the way down, my little finger just touches the front of my shoe, all right? So that's, if we want to measure it, there we go. That's just over 4 inches, all right? So, yeah, again, I don't want to cheat. So I might be slightly more than 4 inches now. But if I were much farther away, if I'm back here, for instance, let me reset, right? So I'm 90, 90. I mean, I can't even come close, right? As you can see, right? So I got to get closer. Let me try resetting here. No, see, I'm 2 inches away from the wall here, right? So I got to get closer. Okay, I'm right there. Okay, I can just feel my heel coming off the ground there. All right, so again, if I measured that, yeah, okay, it's somewhat more than 4 inches. It is maybe, might be 4 1/2, for instance. Okay. All right, I'm going to switch from right leg forward to left leg forward. Okay, and I'm going to set up here, 90 back here, 90 here. I'm going to start at about 4 inches. I'm going to use my thumb test again. Yeah, pretty close, okay? Now let me try that. My left ankle is usually not quite as good. And indeed, I've got about 1/4 inch still to go. My left heel is starting to come off the ground. So just as I touch, you can hear me touching, I can feel that heel come off the ground. All right, so there's definitely a difference for me between the left ankle and the right ankle. And so that's the other thing that you want to pay attention to, right? Is even if both of them are good, so you're at least 4 inches, or your thumb plus the fist away for both of them. If one of them is a lot easier than the other, then you have this asymmetry, and that asymmetry alone is likely to lead to compensations. Right? So for mobility, if we've got 2 sides, which we do for ankles and hips, not for T-spine, sort of. There's one T-spine, and you can rotate left and right. But particularly with the ankles, you really want to be thinking about, okay, is there an asymmetry between my left and right ankles, right? And if there is, you want to work on one more than the other. So when I do my ankle corrective exercises to increase my ankle mobility, I do spend more time on my left, all right? The earlier you get started on this, the better. If you wait until you're my age and start doing this, you've got many, many years to correct. So, if you're younger and you're watching this, get started immediately, right? So that's ankle dorsiflexion, which is incredibly important. But we also want plantar flexion, as it's called. And an easy way to test is, go on your knees and see if you can simply relax onto your heels, so your butt's on your heels, and your feet now are completely called plantar flexed, right? They should be flat on the ground, and you should say, oh yeah, that's not a problem, right? So for me, I've got pretty decent plantar flexion, right? So this way, this is up is dorsiflexion, down is plantar flexion. We need both, okay? So, test both of them. And then, maybe next week we'll talk a little bit about some of the correctives that you can do. We've covered some of these before, but we'll come back to them, all right? So take a look at your ankle mobility, do a self-assessment, don't cheat, right? Assess it properly. Think about symmetry left and right. All right, see you next week.